Dr. Larry Sabato, welcome to Planet America.
Thank you so much, John. Nice to be back.
So, Larry, is it fair to say, based on your tweeting this week, that you were not particularly impressed with Donald Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden?
Oh, I was as impressed as I think I would have been in 1939 with the German-American pro-Hitler rally that was held in Madison Square Garden, which, granted, was a different building back then. But no, it was a very impressive turnout of people who were charged up and were ready to laugh at all kinds of nasty and vile ethnic jokes.
Larry, I know that many historians such as yourself don't tend to like to throw around comparisons with fascism and Nazism, but given that the likes of former Trump advisors, John Kelly and Mark Milley, have been using fascism, do you feel it is now appropriate to actually make that clear, make that case and say, here's where this is eerily similar to Nazism?
Well, I think we have an obligation to do it. And, you know, when I think of John Kelly and particularly General Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, I guess I'd put it this way. They have more integrity and truth-telling in their little fingers than Donald Trump does in his entire rather big body. So when they tell you that Donald Trump is authoritarian, and in fact, they use the word fascist, when they tell you that they don't trust him to stick to the Constitution. When they tell you that we're headed for a period in the American Republic if Trump is president, unlike any we've had, and they don't mean that in a good way, I think we ought to listen.
So, Larry, you have to tell me, after getting into that Twitter exchange with Trump advisor Stephen Miller calling you despicable and depraved, what are the consequences of that sort of thing?
Well, I have tenure. So I would say, tenured academics are kind of expected to be depraved and despicable. That's what I've always been told. I've lived into my 70s. I'm hoping I'll get some of it.
And were you surprised by the response that it got on Twitter, Larry? A lot of MAGA minions obviously piling on, agreeing that you are despicable. A lot of support as well, I noticed.
Well, I was surprised that he responded. You would have thought he was busy. This is a big production, and he's one of the key Trump aides who will be running the detention camps if Trump is reelected. And they're quite serious. This is not a fantasy. There will be large detention camps in the United States, supposedly for, quote, illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants. But I suspect that the people participating in these detention camps will expand beyond illegal immigrants. So you'd think he'd be busy, but apparently he had time to write a long response when he knew very well my tweet wasn't about him. It was about Donald Trump. It was about the fact that people who have been close to Donald Trump, including his first wife, said he has a fascination with Hitler. He kept one of Hitler's books close by, near the bedroom. When you have the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and his longest serving chief of staff while he was president telling you that he thought Hitler had done some good things. I thought he was going to bring up the Autobahn. When they tell you that he believes he deserved Hitler's generals because they obeyed orders without question. And on. I get a little nervous. I'm surprised that everyone doesn't.
So, Larry, what is your sense right now? In another week, are we going to be looking back on that Madison Square Garden rally and saying that that was a weird end to a weird campaign, or are we going to think of it as a stroke of political genius and that Donald Trump did exactly what he needed to do to get out that male vote that won him an election?
The answer is yes. It will be one of those two, John. Which it is. I can't tell you. We've got 7 full days left, and people say, "Oh, it's over by now. Who's going to win?" No, we've actually had in my lifetime a couple of presidential races that were decided right at the end by big events that happened. So you always want to keep an open mind. You want to look every hour of every day in the final week of a campaign. So October surprises can also be November surprises. The election finishes up November 5th. So you've got the first and the second and the third and the fourth as well. And again, you never know about these things. Probably this is decided in a way that we don't know yet because none of the ballots have been opened. And all of the early vote figures really don't mean very much because we only have 1 year to compare them with under the new rules, and that was 2020, and there was a little something called COVID going on there, which caused just about everybody to come out early to vote.
So finally, Larry, what is your famous crystal ball telling you right now, beyond just the polls and the other data that's out there, like the early voting figures and so on? What are the indicators you're looking at to see which of these two candidates might have the advantage now?
Well, I don't like the polls anymore. I've been very, very critical of them. I still think they're wrong, though they probably aren't as wrong as they were in 2016 and 2020 when they were very wrong. They were really wrong in both of those years. People say, well, they predicted Biden. Yeah, they predicted Biden to win in a landslide. And Biden squeaked into office because of our electoral college more than anything else. I'm hoping that they have made further improvements. They tell me they've made further improvements. They're waiting for new things like rural, urban, suburban, which they hadn't done before. And maybe that brings some of the hidden Trump vote into the sample. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's still a point or maybe more of hidden Trump vote. And that's going to matter anytime a state has a large rural area or a suburban area that primarily is exurban.
Dr. Larry Sabato, thanks for being with us again on Planet America.
Thank you so much, John.